Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our weekly live show at Pros and Babes, where we empower successful professionals who want it all, but are navigating the enormous demands of parenting to regain that professional identity after childbirth and that career success while still putting family happiness and health first. And yes, we know you're sleep deprived and you're time deprived, but even then you can still make some shifts in your life that will make you enjoy this period of your life so much more and feel like you're being all of you, even though your identity is changing tremendously as a mom. So we show up every week here, and we really want to empower you to be the best you are as a professional, as a mom, to reach your goals and to feel good during pregnancy, childbirth, and postpartum, and beyond as a working mom. And today is a really special topic. We have an amazing woman, a mother of three, a doula, somebody who's really devoted to making your lives better and more comfortable. And that transition from childbirth into postpartum, April is just so happy to serve you. Hi, April. How are you today?
Good morning. I'm so great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So for our viewers who are joining us, we're using StreamYard. You have to grant StreamYard permission to use your name if you want to say hello, or you can just type up the content, your comments, but we won't see your name. So if you want, you can say hello to us, or if you're watching a replay, write that you're watching the replay. So April, tell us about yourself. Who are you and what is a doula?
Thank you so much. Yeah. So two different sides of me is one, I'm also a business owner, like lots of people in this group. So not only am I a doula, but I own an agency here in town, which is very different approach to doula work than some people are familiar with. So there's myself, and now my team's grown to be, I think we're at 10 people, 10 or 11 doulas on my team. So we're a large team together. And the best part of what we get to do is we get to support pregnancy, we get to support childbirth, and we get to support everything after babies are born in the postpartum. So I have a ton of people on my team who support pregnancy and birth. I have a ton of people who just support postpartum, and I have people who are trained in both areas. And I think that that's the most important part that people forget, is that having a baby is a life-changing experience. It is absolutely life-changing, and for some people, career-altering, which is something that they don't expect when they're having a baby. And so providing support for families, and obviously the priority is the person that's pregnant, the person that's giving birth, but we are there to support you and your partner, and in lots of cases, people who have other kids as well, who are on multiple pregnancies. But we get to be a guide, we get to be an interpreter, we get to be a provider of knowledge. So there's such a huge role that doulas can fill in birth givers' lives that sometimes people don't realize. They kind of think, oh, a doula might show up and help me have a baby, when there's this giant area that we encompass that could be almost, for some people, we support almost 2 years. So full pregnancy being almost a year, and up to a full year after, which is postpartum. We get to have these beautiful relationships with families that we've built and grown from the time they get pregnant to the, when they're going back to work, which is a lot of what you support, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And for somebody who's just became pregnant and they're starting to think about how they're going to deliver, I'll be honest about my journey. I didn't know what the difference between a doula and a midwife was, and I was thinking, I think I might want to have my baby at home. And it sounds, somebody told me about it and they had a really good experience. And so the first thing I researched was a doula, confusing a doula with a midwife and not knowing the differences. So for those at the beginning of their journey, can you educate us on how they play different roles?
No, that's super fantastic. And you're not alone. So many people do that. It's a great thing to differentiate from. So the biggest difference between a midwife and a doula is that a midwife is just like a doctor. If you were to find a doctor, they're a medical care provider. So there's somebody whose primary goal in your childbirth journey is the health and well-being of yourself, the pregnant person, supporting that, the medical, I don't like to use the word medical, but like the actual process of giving birth, and the medical piece of that, which is the delivery and the safety of mom and the safety of baby. So they're a medical care provider, and that's their primary job. Whereas doulas are in a way the complete opposite. So no catching babies. We're not medical. We certainly have first aid training, but our job is to support the physical and the emotional well-being of the person who's giving birth. So a lot of that is education, a lot of that is physical support, a lot of that is emotional support. There's a certain knowledge and compassion that comes from a midwife in terms of the process and the how and the act of giving birth, but everything else around the preparation for the birth. A midwife is there, like I sort of mentioned, to catch the baby, but a doula is going to be the one that's going to be there for all of the hours before you're actually ready to give birth, right? Because a lot of people don't anticipate that early labor birth time, which is for a lot of people the most emotional and physical piece of it, might be 10, 12, 18 hours before your midwife shows up, or for those people giving birth in a hospital before you head to the hospital. So a midwife just isn't able to be there from like your first contraction until your baby's born. The doula gets to fill that gap for the family up until such time you're actually ready to give birth. Did I fill that in good enough? I'm sorry.
No, it answers the question, and I'd like for us to delve deeper into that. So what I see when we work with women at Pros and Babes, we see that the birth has such a huge impact on who they are. It's like one of the most altering moments in your life. We talk about the term matrescence. When there's the birth of a baby, there's also the birth of a new mother. The changes in emotions, physical, brain, like you are a different spouse, you're a different person. And sometimes people wonder, can I afford the support or not? Should I take on this expense or not? And we had a conversation in our feed this week about postpartum supports, and I saw a few times like I didn't have a doula and I regret it, right? I wish I had the support, or I had a doula. Best investment I ever made, because it's an investment, and we always encourage moms in this group, if you have a career and you're both working really hard, invest in yourself. You deserve it. Like your body and your mind needs it. So let's dive deeper into why women might say this is the best investment I made, and some will say I really regret I didn't. I thought about it, but I didn't. So why should they make that investment in their bodies and their minds?
Well, I think you really hit it. It's life. This is a life-altering decision, and in some ways, I compare it to the way that people prepare for marriage. So, lots of people spend a lot of money and a lot of years planning to get married and planning the perfect event or planning any kind of event. There are certainly people that sort of jump into marriage just like childbirth, but a lot of people, especially a lot of working business professional women, spend a lot of time planning. We're planners. That's just who we are. And so they spend a significant amount of time and money investing and planning and talking to professionals and figuring out the best way to do this. And people forget that childbirth is the same. People don't realize how much time and money and planning should go into childbirth until, kind of like you mentioned, they're on the other side of it and go, oh, I didn't realize we could have done this. I didn't realize we should have prepared for this. Even the financial aspect, when people comes down to buying a crib, or what are all the things we need to have in our house, or do we pay for a doula? How, what is postpartum support going to look like from a financial perspective? That there's so much of these things that can go into childbirth to make it memorable, to make it more positive. And that's the part sometimes where people don't realize, is that doulas, people who have had doulas in birth or postpartum tend to have better bonding experiences, tend to have more positive stories of their birth and postpartum. They tend to be more satisfied with their journey and their actual experience of giving birth. They tend to be more confident. They tend, I think at some point, whether it's now or later, we're going to talk about mental health, from an anxiety perspective, from a struggle after babies come. That's where people who have doulas find all these things. They talk about them very differently than those people who didn't.
Oh, absolutely. I see that. I've seen that firsthand. I've heard dozens and dozens of birth stories, and from my own experience too. So very much about mine, but I think my doula was present for about half an hour before the baby came. The midwife arrived 2 minutes before the baby came. And it's probably one thing that my doula said at a moment where, and this is quite an intimate experience, but I'm glad to share because I know some women are preparing for childbirth. I was just my body was, I was panicking, like I was thrashing like a fish, and, you know, I wanted everything to stop. And my doula just told me, like, do this one thing, like shift in this position. And you see, I'm getting emotional talking about it. And it made the whole difference. Like, the baby was out 5 minutes later and, you know, she got me through that most difficult moment. And my memory of the birth is quite fantastic, I'll say. Was it pain-free? No, but it was very rapturous, and it's left a beautiful imprint on my heart, right? And what a gift to have for you and your child, to have a beautiful memory of something that is life transforming, versus having an experience that can be, you know, some people feel so unsupported during birth. They want something, they have a plan, but maybe their needs are not taken into consideration, and things are done to them versus them feeling empowered to do it. And you carry that for a long time. And then, you know, you either might do the work before, or you might have to do it after, where you will have to relive that and work through the pain and then get into a better place. So that segues nicely into the topic of continuous physical and emotional support during childbirth and postpartum support and mental health. Tell us about that, April.
Yeah, empower. I love the word that you used, empower, because that's a big part of what we do as doulas. And the other words that came to mind when you were talking about your journey, like, thank you for being so vulnerable, because it's a vulnerable, this is a vulnerable topic, you know, talking about birth and postpartum. For a lot of people, whether you're just going into that journey or you've already had that journey, being vulnerable is something that we get to hold space for people as doulas and do those things. So instilling strength and reducing fear during pregnancy, during those moments of childbirth and into the postpartum, is such a big piece of what we do. So instilling strength and confidence and reducing fear. And when you're talking about mental health, and when you're talking about postpartum, you know, sometimes I talk about, we're also Google, like, we are Google, forget Google. Google is a scary rabbit hole when you are a new parent, or even when you're pregnant. So it's kind of nice to be able to have someone at your fingertips 24/7, whether it's a text, a call, a video chat, a visit to your house, questions about feeding, questions about recovery. You know, doulas are really good at answering what's normal and not normal. So no, we're not obstetricians, we're not midwives, we're not pediatricians, but we have a really great knowledge of birth and babies. So answering normal, not normal questions, or saying, hey, you really should call the midwife, you should call the doctor, you should see the pediatrician. You know, we can sort of give you in the realm of, this is normal things or not. And especially when it comes to holding emotion in the postpartum. So Kenya, I don't know if you've come across this yet. A big thing I've talked about families in the last, I mean, the pandemic's been here for about 6 months so far, is helping people hold space for two different emotions at the same time. Lots of people have gratitude, right? Gratitude, I'm safe, I'm healthy, I have a baby that's safe and healthy. And then they feel guilty for also holding feelings of grief right now.
Yeah.
And that's okay. You know, helping families understand that it's okay to hold grief and gratitude at the same time, and finding space for both of those things. You know, your pregnancy and your delivery is going to be different. We're living in a different time. It's a lot to cope with. So it's nice to have a doula that can guide you through some of that. The same with postpartum, people feeling the loss of the things they thought they would be doing. They thought they would be going to mom and baby yoga and mom and baby swim class, and they thought they would be joining a lot more parents and families in person, that they're not able to do because of the nature of what's happening in the world. So a big part right now is helping families hold both of those emotions. And I think a big part, which is, I think, delves into a lot of what you and your team work with families on, work with working mothers on, is self-care. And that's kind of like a crappy word for some people, and a word that a lot of people associate with, like, the things that maybe they can't do. Well, maybe I'm not comfortable going for a massage. Maybe I'm not comfortable going for a pedicure. That's what self-care is, where self-care is, it's okay to focus on your career. It's okay to think about those things. It's okay to do reading for you. That's not, you know, I challenge people. When was the last time you read something for you? You know, when was the last time you purchased something for you? Because, as like you said, that identity shift as parents, our focus is all of a sudden this other human or humans we've brought into this world, and we're reading stuff about babies, and we're buying stuff for our babies, and we're doing all these things because our whole shift focuses to the tiny humans, where if you can't be a good parent, you can't be there for your baby. And so it's important to help families find the confidence to do those things for themselves, right?
Absolutely. I love what you're saying. We're so about encouraging moms to regain that part of themselves. And yes, that it's okay. It makes you part of who you are. And what do you want to teach your children about you being a working mom, having a career, and valuing your intellectual and professional knowledge and your experience, right? Because that just doesn't go poof when you become a mom. It's still part of you and you want to live it. So thank you for encouraging moms to remember that. It's easy to let that slip. I had a question and it slipped my mind. Yes, I found it again. So COVID pandemic changes for everything. Tell us about the type of support that you offer right now. Things are almost changing daily with guidelines. So how can women take advantage of a doula support in this day and time?
For sure. And things look a little bit different in birth and postpartum. So I'll touch on both of those things for you. The best part about what we do right now is, and it's just who we are as doulas, is we're flexible. So like you said, things with birth and babies are pretty much changing on the day, on the week, but we're still able at this point, following, especially for us, safety guidelines. So anytime doulas are visiting someone in person, so in the birth, in the pregnancy, in the, let's call it early labor, where we might be joining people at home, we're changing clothes and we're wearing masks and we're following all the health guidelines that other close contact professionals are following. So we are comfortable seeing those families that are choosing to see a doula in person. We're still able to provide that support. So whether it's someone like yourself who's exploring a home birth option and might have a midwife and is able to have a doula through that entire period, we are seeing those families in person. We're seeing them at home through their home births. We might be seeing them early labor at home and then transferring to the hospital. The hospitals are a tricky place right now with everything that's happening. It's really something that we have to talk about with every individual client. Some hospitals are allowing doulas, some aren't. So we are able to join some families in person at the hospital. In some situations, we're having to go virtual at that point. So we may have done a piece of in-person support and then be popping on video with them and just changing the different type of support we're offering. And some people just aren't comfortable with seeing someone in their home right now. They're even in that early labor support, they're looking at a different approach. And so we are providing completely virtual birth or pregnancy and birth support for those families where that's important to them. So you still get lots of live video time, phone, text, email support, to prepare for that journey. And then in those times at home or at the hospital is so fantastic. They're absolutely amicable to be having computers and iPads and phones, video chatting with doulas, and we're still conversing with doctors and nurses through video chat, which is phenomenal that they're so open to having us in that way in the hospitals as well as in person when that's a possibility. So on the birth side, we're able to support families wherever they're at. That might be just virtual support. They're not comfortable seeing have someone else in their home face to face. That's totally fine. And those people that are comfortable, we're following health guidelines to be able to do that. And the same goes on the postpartum side. It's almost identical. Is we're doing the exact same thing. We are those families that want to see in-person support. We're still able to provide 8 hours of overnight support in home to families that are comfortable, or we are providing full virtual support postpartum as well with daily check-ins and meal plans and video chats for people after the babies are born.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's great that you've been so flexible. I think when we were going into the pandemic, I used to offer in-person programs, right? So people who have participated in my programming know that I offered it at ASAC. It was moms coming with their babies. And with the pandemic, we switched online to Zoom. And I was worried that one of the main reasons moms like Frozen Babes is coming in person. And true, that was an aspect of it. But I have to say that some of the aspects of doing the connections online is even more powerful. We started using all these asynchronous communication tools and even expanding our programming. So I do a lot of voice message exchanges with my clients, right? We'll do back and forth and like we're able to answer the questions right away. You don't have to wait for a meeting in a week. No, it's like you send me a voice memo and I can respond right away. And I bet that you do that. You do the same. So online doesn't mean necessarily less quality. It might actually mean the opposite. You're going to get even more dynamic support. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And I think, we're always flexible to clients no matter what they're doing, but sort of the traditional from a birth perspective support would be, you'd meet your doulas once, and then there's lots of communication leading up, and then you have a couple prenatal visits. So my doulas work in teams of 2, so you might have an in-person meeting with one doula, an in-person meeting with another doula, and the next time you see them is when you're giving birth. Whereas like you mentioned, in the pandemic, there's a lot more vocal communication and lots more video. We can pop on the video for 15 minutes, no problem, right? I mean, we live in this wonderful age of technology where I can pop live on my cell phone. I can pop into a Zoom call. I can do those things. So we're actually seeing our clients a lot more, which is, I think, phenomenal.
Excellent. Good. Okay. I want to talk to you about some of the things that your clients have told you. Moms are, we tend to put the needs of others first. We think about the baby, we think about our husband, we think about family members, and we often end up last on our list of people we'll care for. So at Pros and Babes, we encourage moms to think radically differently about the resources. Most of the moms that I work with me, 99, even 100% end up going back to their jobs. They're going to do well financially. We go into mat leave thinking, well, I'm going to get less money. EI, can I afford this? Can I not? But many women come out of mat leave and say, oh, you know what? I should have been a little bit more generous with myself. I should have done this or done that. So I want to push moms out of their comfort zone and tell them, yes, you're worth it. Yes, you are worth this doula support. And I've seen tons of comments about the work you do, like everywhere. People are like, April Fermaniuk's the best, her team's the best, I love what they're doing. So tell us some highlights of what clients love about working with you and why you've saved their lives.
No, that's fantastic. I think the number one thing for me, where most of our families is, and it sort of ties into the mental health aspect as well, is everything's tied to sleep. People can try all they want to prepare for having a baby, but that lack of sleep and that change in routine, even, lots of people laugh about, at the end of their pregnancies, they're going to the bathroom all the time and they're not comfortable because their bodies have changed, but nothing can prepare you for what happens after your baby's born in that newborn phase that might last 2 weeks, 6 weeks, 4 months, 6 months. Every tiny human's a bit different, right? And so I think number one is sleep. So a significant amount of my team spends overnights with clients. So that looks a little different for families that are breastfeeding, looks different families for bottle feeding. It doesn't matter. We're able to provide that support no matter what. So we do 8, 10, 12 hours with clients overnight so that themselves and their partner can wake up and feel great the next day, because in a lot of cases, like you've mentioned, people, even though they're on mat leave, they're still focusing on professional development and career. And so they can get up and still be there for their newborn, still be there for their newborn and their toddler, and have the capacity to do a whole bunch of other things in the day because they've gotten sleep at night. So people underestimate how much, whether that's one night a week or 5 nights a week, where that sleep support at night can completely change their mental health and their capacity to do other things during the week. So I think that's the first one. And the second one is the myth that new parents have to do it all. You have to cook, and you have to clean, and you have to feed your human, and you have to take care of your toddler. And oh, by the way, could you go out and get groceries? And you're like, I mean, I can multitask, but that's a lot of stuff. And you don't.
Please let me grow other arms, please.
Right?
I pushed out a baby. Where's the extra arm that didn't come out?
No kidding. And we live in this society where we need to be more comfortable with people asking for help. It's great. People that ask for help are all the positive things that you've mentioned. So let your doula be the one that stops and picks up your grocery order and brings it on her way in. Let your doula do the meal prep for the next week. Sometimes people just want some space for themselves. So your doula might take the baby so that you can maybe tidy around the house or do a few things, or get a start on that research or what have you, so that we can take care of the baby for you so that you can feel normal and do all those other things. Or you can just camp out with your baby and bond and love your baby and let us help with the other stuff. So I mean, that's sort of the second big part, is let us take a piece of that off of your table and let us help with it. Let us support that. Let us be those 2 extra arms when you're having to feed the baby and making sure that you're taking care of yourself. So, lots of times you'll see, and you've seen some of the comments in your group where people are like, I'm sitting and feeding the baby, and all of a sudden my water bottle shows up full and a plate of food so I can eat with one hand. And then I go downstairs and, lunch or supper's ready for tonight for if my partner's coming home. Those other little things that you forgot to take care of. And I think the third biggest piece is the questions. How do I? What do I? Am I engaging my baby enough? Tell me about that. Is this normal? What is sleep regression? How do I get the baby to sleep more? How do I soothe the baby? If the baby cries and I'm not sure, what are the best tools to use? Let's talk about those things. So I think those are three of the biggest ones is sleep. Let us help plan with all the other things, or stop you and say, hey, take that deep breath, step back, you got this, with the knowledge and the confidence piece.
Yeah. Ultimately, it's getting that support to really feel great, not just survive, but feel great and have good memories of that time and feel whole again. Birth opens you up in a completely different way, and not to not feel destroyed by that experience. It's priceless. It's priceless story, right? So April, we are coming up closely to our 30 minutes. We can close either with any final comments or words of encouragement you might have for the pregnant women who are going to deliver soon, or we have quite a few moms in our group that gave birth recently. So if you have any tips, like top 3 tips or any final statements, now's the time to let us know, and tell us too. We'll write it in the comments in our email recap. If you're watching the recording, we'll also send email recaps if you're on our mailing list. But tell us, where can people find you? How can they connect with you? How can they talk to you and find out more if a doula is a right fit for them? So tips and connection info.
For sure. So one of the biggest things I want people to know is that it's never too late. We'll get a call with someone the minute they find out they're pregnant. If you're not holding your baby for birth support, if you're not holding your baby, it's not too late. We've connected with clients the minute they find out they're pregnant, and then, which is fantastic because it gets us such an opportunity to connect with you through that entire pregnancy, right up until delivery. Or we have people who realize they've been busy with their career, and at 37 weeks, they go, oh my gosh, now what? And we'll pick up the phone and they can still connect with us and still have that support for that latter stage of their pregnancy and through delivery, which is amazing. And the same goes for postpartum. People feel like, well, I've passed 2 weeks, I'm out of the baby blues, I should be fine. But as we all know, it doesn't get easier, it just changes. So there's lots of times we support families at the hospital after their babies are born, 2 weeks along, 4 weeks along. It might be 6 months along when you realize that you need that extra set of hands, or that emotional things take a different turn, or you're going back to work and you need to prepare for those things. So it's never too late. We reach families at every stage of pregnancy and every stage of postpartum. So that entire year plus an entire year postpartum, there's the ability to reach doulas. And knowing that we're professionals just like you. So we also get it. Most of us have families. Most of us have been through these stages and are able to help you adjust in ways and give resources. So, let us be the person who says, if you haven't delved further into Pros and Babes, you need to do that. Let me help you find the support groups for mental health that exist in Edmonton and the right places to reach out for those things. We can help you with that information. Know that we're the experts in birth and babies, and your partner and your family, they're the experts in you, and we're going to become that expert. But between having an expert about birth and babies and having the expert in you, as families, we can all work together to sort of change that experience for everyone. We're at meeting families exactly where they're at, kind of when we talked about the type of support we're doing. You can reach us phone, text, email. My website's EdmontonAreaFamilyDoulas.com. You can reach us through the website. We can set up phone conversations, video. We're setting up video chats all the time. Everyone's pretty comfortable with that right now, which is amazing. And all those initial touch bases there's no cost to any of that. There's no cost to just asking me, tell me more about your team. Tell me more about birth support. Tell me more about postpartum support before we dive into it. So I love getting on video chats with people just to talk about what we do and who we are, and to get a better feeling and connect you with people on my team so that you can, again, have some video chats with the birth doula team so you can get to know them before you make your final decision. But that you can change this experience in birth and postpartum, no matter where you're at in your journey. And between birth or postpartum support, that we'd love to meet you wherever you're at. And we're really great at listening and hearing and being non-judgmental and unbiased, regardless of what your approaches of birth and parenting are.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time, April. So our participants can also find you in our Facebook group, really, and send you a message directly to Facebook, right?
Yes.
So again, Edmonton Area Family Doulas, April Fermaniuk, doula, agency owner with a team of 10. She's here to support you throughout your pregnancy, childbirth, after, and the postpartum period. For those who are joining us just at the end, you can watch the replay in our Facebook group, on YouTube, on Instagram. We post snippets, so you're going to hear about April all over the place if you are just catching the end of our show. Have a wonderful weekend. See you next week on our show right here. And again, say hello if you see us around. Bye.
Thanks, Kivia.
Thanks.